Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Joel and Adam for another episode of Horror Express. And tonight we're talking about the 1965 Italian horror movie Planet of the Vampires, directed by Mario. Is it Mario Bava or Mario Bava? What's the correct pronunciation here?
I'm gonna go with Bava based on nothing but my own preference.
Bava
I'm gonna back
sounds,
you up on
yeah,
that.
Bava sounds a little deeper and more, I don't know,
It's
a
it's
little.
what I yeah,
It's got a
it's what
more
I've
gravity
heard
to it.
before.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah,
Mario Bava.
I like to think they're both people, and one of them is this huge butch plumber dude, and the other one's the director, and we don't know
Yeah.
which is which, and we just inadvertently credit the
It's
wrong guy, and he's
yeah,
like,
you always
"Excellent."
if you're a Mario Bava fan, Mario Bava is the guy who makes all the good Mario Bava movies, and all the crappy ones you just shift them over to Mario Bava. But
What's your problem with Mario Bava? He'll hit you with his plumbing wrench, sir.
but so so anyways, we're talking about Planet of the Vampires, which apparently one of the reasons why it's known in a lot of horror circles now is because it might have inspired some of the key scenes in the movie Alien by Ridley Scott, which we did just last week, and also it's one that none of us have seen, and we wanted to do Italian horror, so here we are doing a 1965 Italian horror movie, which is, I think, we've done a lot of leaps into different times of horror, like going back to like the 1930s to the 40s. This was the biggest one for me, just in terms of science fiction before 1970 is a whole other thing. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and this reminded me of like the stuff I used to watch on syndication as a kid. Do you know what I mean? Like those kinds of movies, like the things that were just playing probably at like 11 a.m. on a weekday or something, that you watched. So yeah, I don't know. Do we need to recap the plot for people? Is that, this what is it? These two spaceships are responding to a signal on a planet. One of them they lose contact with, the other one lands, and everybody on the ship starts attacking each other after they come to from being knocked out by the impact. I think if I followed what was going on correctly. And then after that's all settled, they realize that the dead bodies of people that were killed, a couple of the crew members on the other ship died and stuff like that, are being animated by this like disembodied alien race that's sort of like parasites that can take over your dead bodies. And they're trying to escape from their planet so that they can, go to the home planet of the people in the movie and kind of colonize it essentially, or take over it in some way. And that's the basic plot. Am I missing anything crucial there, or?
No, I mean that's pretty much it. I will say that the idea of being marooned on a haunted planet is a really cool premise,
Mhm.
um, and I deeply, deeply enjoyed it. Because like old sci-fi always has kind of a thing where it has to be based on something. Like everything's kind of based on something else, and it's as far as I can tell with stuff like this, it's kind of based on like naval stories, like being at sea and being marooned on a weird island. You
Mhm.
could sort of see like you can sort of see the DNA between this and stuff like The Tempest, where there's a ship of people that are marooned on an island and stuff happens there, you
Yeah.
know. So it's interesting to see that connective tissue.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as the plot, yeah, I think you nailed it.
And so why don't we talk first, because Joel, you brought this up about the look of the movie, because it has a distinct look. The first thing I noticed about it was actually the spacesuits. The spacesuits and the helmet were the things that really leapt out to me. They look like, I mean, they're very stylish. They have a very almost like a motorcycle look to them. Do you know what I mean? Like it looks like I don't know what
Yeah.
you call a person who drives a sports motorcycle. Their gear, whatever that is what it looked like to me, down to the helmet. And I thought it gave the film a very sharp look, and everything else kind of shared that quality. But it was all done in a 1960s science fiction-y way, which is,
Yeah, everything looks very much like the illustration on a like 50s or 60s science fiction magazine or something. I
yeah,
mean, it just nails that
yeah.
look.
But there's also like a real style, like there's that look, but there's also like a, I don't know, there's something else going on too. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
Just in terms
yeah.
of the way it
Yeah.
looks, like uh, it's odd because obviously you're definitely dealing with primitive special effects. Like you have a space vessel that is not even moving, right? Like it's just stationary and it's got steam coming out of it, and they have like air flowing past it to make the illusion that it's landing, right? So it looks, by our standards, it looks kind of crappy. But then when they get to the planet, it's like all this thick, plumy mist, and the sets are they're not that different from Star Trek sets, but because of the way they're lit, they just have there's just something more special about them. Do you know what I mean? It did a good job.
There's a lot of mood.
Yeah, they created mood with like styrofoam, which I thought was kind of impressive.
That was really impressive. I mean, there's a lot of art that goes into sculpting that styrofoam, and like, again, and I'm going to go back to your thing where, because it's physically there and the actors have to physically interact with the stuff, there's a weight to it that makes it very real when you're watching it in a film. And the sets are huge, and they knew where not to light them, and they knew to light them with colors that were really like off-putting and lurid, like these kind of sickly greens and these bright toxic like reds. So making it sound like a Christmas movie, but like, you know what I mean? Like
it's more like a red light district than a Christmas movie, I think, is the look.
There's something unhealthy about the lighting, you know? And it really sells, like, it doesn't only sell the fact that this place is like cryptic and mysterious and dangerous, but also that there's something kind of passively hostile about it. Like, just there's something kind of radioactive and unknowable about its danger, which I really like.
And they also did a good job of setting up like a big plot beat with the what do they call it? The meteor, not meteor reflector, meteor deflector.
The meteor. Yeah, it's like a meteor rejector or something.
That's it,
like
meteor rejector. That was it. So they set up that idea. Without this thing, we'd be Swiss cheese, and then sure enough, that becomes relevant.
Chekhov's meteor deflector.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of nice, and it was so obvious the moment they said, "You're like, yes, that is going to matter." You just knew they weren't even trying to be subtle about it. I also liked the look of. Everybody had everybody's hair was styled. Do you know what I mean? This is the this. It fits with the age because this is the time when like the captains have good hair, the women have good hair. But I feel like they went even the extra mile in this movie, where it's like they had Hollywood level like A-list hairstyles going on. Even like after a big action sequence, they take off their helmet and they just have a gorgeous mane of hair that's perfectly styled. And I thought for this movie it added to it. It didn't take away from it.
It does. It really sells that it's the future and these people live in its super sophisticated kind of science.
It also added like the degree of glamour and envy that you want. Do you know what I mean? Like there was like something where it's like you felt that these people were like they were kind of above you in a way, but they were also like I don't know. They were just. It just added to the overall charisma of the crew. I think. Do you know what I mean? It just was a. Sometimes we get really caught up in making everybody look damp and gross in a science fiction movie, and I kind of liked that these were people that I actually looked like you'd want to welcome into your home. Do you know what I mean? They looked clean. They looked clean and they had good hair.
And they had good hair and good clean teeth too.
It's just such a contrast to what you're used to. Do you know what I mean?
Well, especially when we're putting it back to back against aliens, everyone's sweaty and grimy and miserable.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is the thing that's interesting is the differences. And we kind of talked about things in common with Alien with this movie, but it's just that is a really sharp difference.
It's first class space horror versus coach space horror.
Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
This is the age of like the captain with his hands on his hips. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of it's that kind of an era.
By the way, I really like the actor for the captain.
I did too.
He sells it the whole way, and there's a scene toward the end where they're finally taking off from the planet, and he's got this like serene, like smiley look on his face after his whole crew died, and I was like, wow, that's a weird facial expression, but then they pay it off, and it's like, oh, he was acting the whole time. You tricked me with your acting.
The guy's name I think is Barry Sullivan. He reminded me of the guy who played Caesar in Rome. I don't know why, but like I got a similar vibe.
I can see that. Yeah.
It's like the right combination of sensitivity and masculinity. Do you know what I mean? It's like this guy's a leader, but he's got there's like a dash of empathy in there that makes him be somebody that you'd want to follow. Do you know what I mean? It's not just pure machismo or something, you know. And so I thought
he's not he doesn't have that kind of Captain Kirk daring do, but like there is something about him that's sort of magnetic and irresistible. Yeah, I really I concur with your assessment of his captain character.
And then we also had, you know, like a pretty well-rounded crew. A lot of people that are just kind of there to be in peril and die. But you know, what did you guys think of the I don't want to call, I guess, the alien element, not the supernatural element, because it's not it's called Planet of the Vampires in English. I think it's just called Terror in Space in Italian, right? Like that was the Italian title. These aren't really vampires, even though they do allude to vampire-like imagery when they're buried on the planet and they push up the metal cover of their burial plates. But other than that, they're basically just animated corpses. They're not out to drain blood and you can. And they're cogent. You can talk to them, and they pretty much explain their plan like right away. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I thought it was going to be this big game where, you know, but then it's like, nope, I'm just going to turn around and tell you everything, and it was kind of a sigh of relief because it was like, oh, okay, I don't have to wade through this game of 20 minutes of them holding off telling me this. So, you know, what did you guys think of that?
Like as far as like I'm going to call them the alien ghosts. So I feel like that's a pretty good description of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different era. I kind of expect a movie to be coy nowadays. I don't really want them to just like the bad guy to be like, and here is my evil plan. Yeah. But I do like that they were alien enough that they thought that would work. You know, they're like, well, yeah. I mean, we're just going to absorb your personalities and be like symbiotes. It'll be great. You can't wait for this. And the people are all horrified. They're like, no, we don't want to have our personalities assimilated. That would suck. And the alien ghosts are all like, really? I do kind of love that there's like a legitimate miscommunication. So that there is something about that it kind of sold me.
What's funny is they're just making the pitch after clearly this other race landed on there like 1,000 years earlier, and they made the same pitch, and they must have fought back. So, and that didn't work out.
Well, so I'd like to think that the first race they were going to be coy with, like, there's no way they're going to go for it. Let's just be really sneaky, okay. And then it all went to hell. And they're like, okay, next race, let's just be upfront with them. We'll see what happens.
Fair enough.
They're rolling the dice.
But they were but as aliens go, they were very reasonable in how they dealt with the humans, right? Or,
I would have been assimilated in a minute. Yeah. Like, because you're right, they're reasonable. I'm cool with that pitch. Oh, we're gonna be like I'm gonna fuse my personality with an alien ghost. You know what? Let's do this. Let's rock. Well, I'm gonna jump in with both feet.
But also they kind of made a good sales argument for it. They're like, look, like, you know, you guys have been warring forever. We looked at, you know, we know your history, and all we want to do is survive, right? Like, wouldn't you do exactly the same thing if you were in our shoes? We're not doing anything outrageous here, right? So, you know, it was I thought it was again, you know, it's the kind of sales pitch that's probably not going to land, but it's the best one that it was still a pretty good one. I thought, yeah. If you're gonna try to sell that, that's the way to do it. You know, you might get erased. It's like, you know, you have a point. Maybe we can work something out. Do you know what I mean?
If the Ferengi had crash landed there, they'd been like, you know what? Okay, like the Ferengi would have went for it.
Well, the Ferengi would have been, well, okay, what can you do for us if we're going to give you all this good, you know, all these good bodies to inhabit? What do we get out of it? You know,
these are A+ bodies. Yeah. We're gonna have to get something real big out of this. Yeah, I could see that. But you know, they would have gotten a good deal.
Yeah. But I don't know.
Actually.
Oh, go ahead.
Speaking of Star Trek, what's the timeline between this and the original Star Trek? Because there's a lot of.
I think it's like about 3 years before Star Trek, I think. Yeah.
Man, there's a lot in this that reminded me of like the way that Star Trek looked, and I was like, well, which came first, this or Star Trek? Because they're both like.
Star Trek was also taking off a lot of those movies from that period too. So.
Yeah, Forbidden Planet's another one that's a big influence on Star Trek that's worth checking out.
Well, in the early Star Trek episodes, like the first whole season was basically like horror, wasn't it? Like I seem to dimly recall watching those.
Yeah. This you know, with a slightly smaller body count, a lot of this could have worked as a Star Trek plot, definitely.
It even kind of flowed a little bit like a Star Trek episode to an extent. Like it
Yeah,
did have
until
that.
the ending.
Yeah, till the end, till the end. Why don't we talk about the ending? Because that's kind of something that I feel like is threaded through the whole movie, anyways. But there's a couple of big reveals. The big reveal at the end is that the Captain Mark and Sonya, I think it's with an A, not an O, right?
Yeah.
We don't know. I don't know exactly when this happened. It could have been from the very beginning of the movie, right when they landed, actually. But but they're both basically inhabited by these alien beings, and so they go through this whole plan to blow up the other ship, and then they get the and they get the what do you call it, the meteor rejector. So that they can then take off and return. Which was a really clever ending. But then you have the double whammy of the guy on the ship sacrifices himself and it's like, well, I'm not going to let you destroy, our planet, so I'm going to stop you. And he smashes the meteor rejector. And then they're like, oh, well, I guess we can't go to the planet that we were going to go to. What about that planet over there? And that planet is Earth. And it was like, these weren't even humans from the very beginning. It's a whole other alien race that we've been following.
That's talking about that line of like pre-70s science fiction. We're still in the era where you can have aliens that just look totally like human beings.
Yeah. And I thought go ahead.
Well, we still kind of do that. Like Stargate did that at one point, where like the Atlanteans or whatever were just people.
You can't. Yeah, it's not impossible, but generally you at least have to have some bumps on your
ridge.
Forehead. Like
there's to be a ridge or an a little chin bump or something.
If you've got a weird face, you're an alien. Yep.
Exactly.
Their cheeks are a little too sharp looking, or something like that. But yeah, I thought that was really clever. I don't know if this is the first movie that did this. There might be others that have made this fake out before this one. But I was not expecting that in this movie. I was kind of expecting the one with the captain because he got that weird look on his face, and I was like, oh, okay, something's up. But I was not expecting them to not be from Earth, and I thought that really, I don't know, that was that kind of the thing that sold me on the film. Actually, it
was a fun twist, definitely. It was I didn't predict it at all.
It was Twilight Zone level twist.
Well,
what I mean?
There's a literal Twilight Zone episode, which is that.
Is there? Okay, so that.
And this is actually is the same time period when I think Twilight Zone was still on the air at this.
Do you know which
too,
episode of Twilight Zone it was?
The one that was written by Rod Serling. That should narrow it down.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But,
I can't think of one that's got the.
I think it's called Third Rock from the Sun or something like that, which got later turned into the name of that comedy show that was on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
With John Lithgow in it. But no, there was at least a story in a script called Third Rock from the Sun, which was that. It was these people were trying to get their family out of their world because their world was dying. And they're like, we've made our own rocket ship. We only take one family, and we're going to go to this weird, obscure dirt ball that's like the third planet from this star.
Okay.
And they're clearly pointing at Earth. And so it's like, oh, they weren't even humans the whole time. They were aliens that looked like people. It's the same thing.
Okay.
I mean,
it is, but then again, this has the additional twist that in that it's just like, oh, these people aren't humans. They're coming to our planet. But it's like in this one, it's like, oh, I like the twist that you're like, oh, good, the guy smashed the device so that these people can't get to their planet, but it's like, oh, now we're all gonna die.
Yeah, because you think, that's my point. Yeah, because you think that he's saving Earth with that gesture. You think, oh, he's stopping them from going to Earth and invading Earth, because that's every time they talked about their plan, I was picturing Earth as the target, and so that's what I thought was clever about it. Is then you're like, oh no, that's actually the thing that directs them to Earth. That's what dooms Earth. Is that noble gesture?
Ironically, the ending of this hints the movie. We wanted to actually review Life Force at some point. We couldn't easily get it through a streaming service. So I'm saying it's actually the similarities between these two movies, not just Alien. I could see this having been and then it's kind of this Life Force is almost expanded sequel.
I
to
would
this.
still like to do Life Force. I feel like that's an
Me
important.
too.
Yeah,
I really want to do that.
I think there's got to be a way. If anybody knows a way that we can do Life Force, let us know, because we, even if it's on the high seas, maybe there's a way that we can do this. But,
I guess I'll always buy it.
Like a bunch of idiots. Why would gauging in ethical commerce? What is wrong with you?
It is on Apple as a rental. So
it's
I
on
have an Apple TV,
maybe,
so
I
actually
could,
can do it.
I can. Do you have to have like a? Well, we'll get in that conversation.
Yeah, that's a post podcast conversation.
But anyways, yeah. So I thought the twist ending was really cool. I don't know. Any other thoughts on that before we move on to another topic?
Well, I would like to point out that with the structure of the movie, like that's also the twist that's kind of an Alien when you think about it, because they get off the ship, or Ridley gets off the ship, and it's like, oh no, the bad guy got on my escape pod with me. It's the same twist.
Wait, can you? I don't know if I quite followed.
Sure. Okay, so the general plot of Alien, like if you just kind of like put the bones of the script out, it's like we pick up a distress signal.
Yeah.
We go to the planet. Shit gets real.
Mm-hmm.
We escape.
Oh,
and,
I see.
There's a monster on our escape vessel.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, it is similar. It is similar, and also that would bring us to the other big similarity, which is that ancient alien sequence in the middle, right? Like
that's what I want to talk about, baby. That's our next time.
So they find another ship that is the prior survivor of this effort, and it's number one, it's a giant alien, which is like an alien. That's the same thing. And
it's the bones of a giant alien.
Yeah,
these huge bones.
Yeah, these massive bones of a giant alien. And then they go inside the ship, and I think they get locked in there, and they have to it's a little bit hokey, that section where they're trapped in the ship and the air is getting sucked out. It's kind of like it's like the complications they used to throw into those TV shows to we need 10 minutes of distress, so they're trapped. It was that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
If there was going to be a commercial break, that's where you would have put it.
Yes.
If it was like classic Doctor Who, that would have been the episode.
Yeah.
In that room.
Yeah, you could definitely see it in an old Doctor Who episode.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. Like the giant alien bones were really impressive, I thought. And obviously,
I like the stylization on them. It's like they weren't like they were. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here. They weren't like totally realistic, but there was just this style to them that was really, really appealing. That fit in with the aesthetic of the movie.
Yeah, because in Alien, the bones are like fossilized into the chair almost, so it's more like this suggestive thing. And this is just like these bones laying out there in the open with a giant skull, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
And a genuinely eerie part of that scene is when they're messing around with the ancient and still functioning tech, and they hit the one which is the creature's voice recording, and it's this deep alien voice. It's actually really eerie.
Yeah, that was, and they couldn't turn it off too, so it's like you had to listen to it, which I kind of liked. I liked the touch that they couldn't get it to go off. And that was probably like the captain saying "Captain's log," it was probably just, but
they're all gonna die. Well, his corpse is there, sprawled over, but right by the device. It's perfect.
So, but that was really cool because it gives you a window into what that race might. So, and I think having that deep voice makes sense given how big they were. But it really does
sense. But it's still so scary sounding.
Yeah, that was a good scene. Anything else about that scene that was there anybody notice anything?
Oh man, I mean, it clearly that scene is clearly the inspiration for the whole space jockey thing. But I'd like to point out that even the spaceship, their spaceship, not the alien spaceship, but their spaceship that they are in, looks like it's shaped kind of similarly to the spaceship that they find in Alien. There's a lot of little things like that where you're like, wow, that really is like a direct inspiration. Yeah. And when you realize how close the movies are together, there's even more of that, where it's like this was 65 and Alien was what, 79?
Yeah.
That's pretty close.
Which is wild considering how different they look in terms of
Alien is head and shoulders more believable.
That's like a movie that came out in 2007 or something, right? About that, maybe 2006. versus now. It's not that like what Transformers came out in 2007, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't look that
Yeah.
different from
Oh,
a
wow.
current movie, right? But like this looks like totally different film ages,
Mhm.
which is always kind of
Yeah. I mean, well, it's just a particular the stretch from the early '60s to the end of the '70s, just culturally and technologically and
yeah,
everything. It's just enormous.
yeah.
A lot more change during that time than the years would indicate.
Yeah, no, it's one of the cool things about watching films from this period. You get to the 70s and just this, like, the look just drastically, radically changes.
Yeah.
And I feel like you
Of
get
course, you have
that,
1968 is 2001 too, so that's a big
Mhm.
yeah,
benchmark
big,
there.
yeah. Well, that's why I was saying, like, it's like, that's like the movie that I was thinking of in terms of the breaking point for,
Yeah.
science fiction. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't really know a whole lot about the movie, so I didn't know what parts of it were supposedly connected to Alien, and
Yeah.
it was kind of cool to be like, oh, is it the planet? And then this giant alien shows up. Oh, that must be what people talk about. So.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. I do think when they landed, there was a little bit of even though it's totally different because it's like that weird model that they're using.
Mhm.
But when they land, there's something similar about the spaceship when it lands too, in that terrain
Yeah.
that reminded me
All
of
that
that.
all that kind of mist when they first landed too felt but they use a lot of mist in Alien when they're
Yeah,
kind of wandering around the planet, and that had a similar vibe to it.
yeah, I agree. I agree. And some things that are definitely different though would be like the overall vibe of the spaceship is very different, I would say.
Yes. Yes.
This one was very spacious, right? This was a very spacious environment that they were operating in,
Hmm.
and obviously very, you know. Well, I guess Alien still was operating on like the older computer model as well. Like they have a whole room that's sort of like the control room for Mother. So that's sort of similar. But this definitely had that look, that Star Trek look that you had. Um, yeah, so I don't know. What about the we covered what was there anything else we wanted to cover before we got into our final thoughts actually?
Well, I actually like going back to the spaciousness. That struck me a lot in this movie. Like the human, the presumably human or humanoid crew inside of their spaceships. It's like a mansion. It's
Mm.
huge. All these open spaces for them to walk, and like
There's
these
like
little like
corridors and
sculptures
stuff.
everywhere. Yeah, it's gigantic. And then when you get into the giant alien spaceship, it's claustrophobic and
Yeah.
cramped. And you're like, are we sure we didn't switch spaceships at some point?
Maybe
But also,
yeah. Maybe that was like a shuttle for them. Maybe they were just in like a little space shuttle to get to the planet. But
maybe.
that is an interesting observation. The giant aliens had a much tighter ship. That's definitely
Oh
true.
yeah, way smaller. Also,
Maybe they didn't feel the need. Maybe the humans, or not the humans, but whatever race this was, because they were smaller, felt the need to, have this exaggerated sense of space.
they had like a Napoleon
Yeah.
complex.
They're burrowing aliens. They like a little
They like it
tight
close.
space there.
I could see them as burrowing aliens. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
But were there any other, aside from the captain, were there any other characters that you liked, or any other performances that you thought were good?
I like the performance of the captain's brother when he was taken over by the aliens.
Yeah.
Because like there was something, like it's clear because they can speak our language. It's clear they don't just like. It's not just like an alien ghost popping into you and like puppeting you. Like they fuse with you somehow.
They know what
And,
you know. They have all your knowledge right away. it
Yeah,
looks
and
like.
that includes like your languages and like the appeals that might work for you.
Yeah.
And like I really liked that. I really liked whenever the actors could portray like going from being one kind of person to being this other alien thing. Because like there's something about it where they're so recognizably who they used to be,
Yeah.
but there's something sinister about them. And his brother did a really good job of like being charismatic in a way that kind of trips that alarm in the back of your brain that says like there's something bad going on here. And I really liked that quite a bit. So I don't know if maybe I think all of the actors were able to do that to some extent, but like I don't know, I feel like he really kind of brought it forward in a way that like, made it really real to me, impact wise.
Yeah, that's the only one that really jumps out at me. Because I mean, like I said, if I think the movie worked, but it's not like you get heavily involved with
Yeah,
any of the characters in this movie.
Yeah,
yeah,
it is a little Star Trekky in that regard.
Hmm. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, obviously you're dealing with the fact too that it's got this dubbing through the movie that isn't that always kind of creates a bit of a disconnect for me as well. So
Mhm.
it's a little harder for performances to get through.
Now,
Yeah, a lot of times it's body language and facial expression that really comes across whenever it's dubbed.
Yeah. Yeah.
what about in terms of Sonya and the captain? When do you think they
Ooh.
were became that way?
I
I
honestly don't know. I wasn't. I mean, it's the kind of thing I only watched it the one
Yeah,
time, and
me
I had
too.
ended
Me too.
shortly before the podcast started, so I couldn't go back and kind of look through. But I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. To me, it seems like it would have been something that happened on the way back to the ship
Yeah, I'm
because.
with you on that one. I think that they lost that firefight, and
Uh-huh.
then what we got coming back was just a lie. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
uh, that would actually kind of go below that one dude's radar. I don't know why they didn't shoot
It
that guy.
it depends on how tricky they were being too as filmmakers. Like, because there were some scenes, like the scene in the ship where they get trapped. You're like, well, they're definitely not overtaken by the aliens by the way they're acting here, right? Because they presumably would have some knowledge of stuff going on in that ship and all that, and the way they're talking to each other. It seems like they're talking to each other as Mark and Sonya. They're not talking about their big plans as the
Yeah.
aliens. But at the same time, when they first landed, I was like, well, I guess it's possible the captain kind of got, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that
I
would have,
was wondering early in the
yeah,
movie. I was like, is
yeah,
anyone just pretending at this point?
yeah.
Right,
But
because
And so Sonya got
we don't spend
choked. If she had died in that scene, she could have been taken over. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's a good point.
yeah,
true.
Yeah, and we don't spend enough time with the characters prior to that point to get to know them well enough to make that distinction. So yeah,
yeah.
that's another point where they could have, but I think that you're right. I think that it's unlikely that they both were. If
Well, it must be a very complicated plan if they were killing a whole bunch of their own people and blowing up their ship so
Yeah.
they could get away on
Well,
this other ship.
that's
It
why I'm
just it gets
saying it depends on how tricky the filmmakers were being. If they were like, "Oh, we're
yeah,
just gonna have this be the thing," and because some
yeah,
movies do that, they don't abide by their own internal logic for when they're trying to surprise you.
yeah.
yeah,
I
I
think
just like that though.
as far as Joel's question of why they didn't shoot that last guy when he ran off to destroy their uh, asteroid rejector or whatever it's called,
I love that.
my feeling is I don't think they understood the idea of maybe for whatever reason they just don't have a good concept of self-sacrifice. Like the idea he's
Yeah,
not going to kill himself.
Why would anyone do that? Yeah,
Yeah,
and again,
yeah,
it might just be
that's
demonstrating just how alien they are because they still seem like they wanted to make a deal with him. You
well,
know?
yeah. Both those ideas go together. The idea they just couldn't conceive of him sacrificing himself fits with them just having a very alien psychology.
so
I love that. I love the idea of alien psychology. That always, and to see it in a movie like this, because like you're right, this was like right a couple of years before 2001, right?
yeah,
2001 is a really good exploration of an alien psychology, like not really understanding how human beings work and trying to communicate. But like
Yeah,
this came before even that, and it's neat that it's kind of exploring that same concept space.
yeah.
So, does that make
um,
me sound like a jerk if I say stuff like concept space? I should probably find a better way of saying that.
is there? Well, how else would you say it? What would be a better way of saying it?
Idea. I think the
Okay.
word idea sounds a lot
I
less.
think idea. I think idea is
A little more
uh,
grounded.
yeah. So so yeah. So why don't we give our assessment or our final thoughts on the movie, our Jerry Springer moment of the show.
I like to think of it as like the terminal thoughts, like right before we put it in the ground. This is the eulogy of
This
the
is the
movie,
eulogy. This is the
or
eulogy
maybe
section
before
of
it
the
puts us in
podcast.
the eulogy section. Yeah, the eulogy section.
Okay, how do we eulogize this film then? What's our which actually is appropriate for this one because there is kind of a eulogy segment in the movie. So
Yeah, this is probably the scariest episode of Star Trek I've ever seen. No, that's underselling it. This movie is beautiful, and especially for the time, it's an incredible visual feast.
yeah,
Let me see. What did I think about this movie? I did not. Okay, so this is an older, hokey, like '60s movie, right?
yeah,
Like I never go into like Planet Terror actually expecting to be afraid, but that scene where the recorder started talking in the alien voice, it got me. I was legitimately creeped out by that. I was like, damn, they really did it. They managed to actually scare me all the way from 1965. Good job, you lunatics.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was ever scared, but I was definitely creeped out at points in this movie. So it definitely scores points for that. Uh, yeah, I would definitely recommend this movie. It's more. I mean, obviously, I kind of give qualifications. It's a dubbed movie. It moves fairly slowly in the early parts, so
Yeah.
you need to be patient with it. But I mean, it is just such a beautiful looking movie that I think it's worth watching for that alone. And it does have a fun plot, no question.
Yeah, I would reiterate what Adam said, which is it definitely is slow in the beginning, and that is a
Hmm.
hurdle in the movie, and not in the way that Alien is slow. This is legitimately, I think, for a modern,
Legitimately
yeah, yeah,
slow.
it
Yeah.
takes a little while for the piece, and also there's a lot of gobbledygook like that they use during the
Yeah.
sciency stuff. So
The, dis-
and it's if it were
the
Doctor Who,
distinguish
it would be
between
forgiving, but huh?
I was gonna yeah, distinguish between it and Alien. It's like Alien has a slow beginning, but the characters are very human, and
Yeah,
you're getting to know these people, and you're seeing them in the workplace, and the you don't kind of get that same feeling watching the characters doing their slow activities at the
yeah,
beginning of this movie. You're not kind
Yeah,
of connecting with them.
yeah,
it's because there's an artificiality and a Hollywoodishness to
yeah.
this. This wasn't made in
Yeah.
Hollywood, obviously, but like you're not being immersed in the world like you are with Alien. Alien draws you in. This
Yeah.
this makes sure that you know there's a screen there. You
Well, and
know.
Yeah.
I think you're the characters are kind of sold to you in different ways. Like the Sonya character, you kind of get the sense that she's a little tougher than the Tiana character, right? Just by
Yeah.
like her face and her demeanor, and that's kind of the way the characters are. You know, I suspect Sonya smokes for some reason. I don't know why, but I never actually see her smoking. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
can see
And
that.
I feel like that's kind of how they transmit the characters to the audience. But it's definitely slow in that the gobbledygook was kind of getting to me at the beginning because I was like, that sentence did not make sense. I'm sure. Like, I don't know enough science to say for certain. Like, maybe they're just like using really obscure language I've never heard before. But that sounds 100% made up. That sentence.
There's a lot of little moments like
Yeah.
that where you're like at the very beginning of the movie where the gravity starts to increase to 40 times what Earth
Yeah.
gravity is. I'm like, they'd be pancakes, A, and B, why does it stop? Like they get to the planet's surface and gravity goes back to normal. Why would that happen? That's not
Yeah,
how
I mean,
gravity
I
works.
thought I thought at some point there'd be like a tractor beam or something on the planet they needed to disable to escape or something. I
Yeah.
thought there would be something that would prevent them from launching to do with that. But then they had the whole meteor rejector plot line, which was the thing keeping them from
Yeah.
leaving.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that whole gravity thing was weird to
Yeah,
me.
and meteor rejector was one of the most oddly named devices I've ever. It's like just completely the wrong word for what it does. Like
Well, I
It
like
the
is.
I like
reject.
there was an atomic generator on the ship, not a nuclear reactor, too. I was like, atomic generator. That's a
Yeah.
Nice.
interesting way of wording it.
So, and that might have been a translation issue. Do you know what I mean? But like,
Yeah,
just like,
it probably was.
but meteor rejector really made me do a double take every time they said it because I was like, wait, you're
Well,
rejecting the meteors? Like, it's
I'll never forget it. I'll never
that's
forget
true.
meteor rejector. If it was like a deflector shield, I would not care.
Yeah.
But it's a
Uh-huh.
meteor rejector. It doesn't reject anything else. But it looks at a meteor and it says, "No, get out of
Also,
here!
there
Don't
must have
hit my spaceship."
apparently there's just a buttload of meteors everywhere in space because like they were
So
just
many
constantly deflecting them, and
rejecting them.
rejecting them. We reject you, meteor.
We're
Um,
not going to Sadie Hawkins' meteor. Get out of here!
but but so anyways, that aside, it was a very enjoyable movie. I really had a good time once I got past that beginning bit, and once I started to get invested in the story, it slowly got me interested, and then I forgot that I was irritated with this slow beginning. And again, what
It's a little
so
bit like a.
huh?
It's a little bit like listening to one of your grandpa's stories, where you're like, "Get to the point, Grandpa." But when you get into it, yeah,
Yeah.
you're into it.
Midway through the story, you forget that you were reluctant to hear it in the first place, and it's kind of like that. So it's like, okay, it's won me over, and then I got sold on it. Really, at the point when I realized the captain and Sonya were now inhabited by the aliens, and then when they did the even bigger surprise of Earth being their new destination. That really floored me that they were able to give me that at the end.
Well,
So
I think that ties into one thing too. Through this movie, I was like, is this really horror? Like in the early part, like is this just going to be science fiction that, like you said,
yeah,
like a Star Trek episode that's a little bit creepy, or just going to be horror? But yeah, by the ending, it's like it definitely sets itself as being a horror movie.
yeah, I would agree. I would agree. That's sort of the thing that turns it into that territory quite firmly, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Though I wouldn't poo-poo the sound effect Joel was talking about either. That was pretty. I thought that was pretty creepy as well. The alien
Oh
speaker
yeah.
thing. But yeah, so this one is available on Prime, and so people can definitely check it out for free. I think they have quite a few movies like this on Prime because I got some recommendations after this
Oh
one
yeah.
finished.
There's a lot of Mario Bava films. Like I think,
Okay.
Black Sabbath is on there and
Ooh.
a few other ones. So if you
Okay.
like this, there's plenty more Mario Bava to check out on Prime.
All right, so maybe we'll do like an Italian month in the near future. But I guess next up, what are our movies that have come out? We know we want to do Life Force, and there was another film that was vying uh, for a spot. Was
Uh,
it
Event Horizon.
Event
The other.
Horizon? That's
Oh
it.
yeah, Event
So,
Horizon.
so it might be Event Horizon because I do know that we can rent that on Prime at least, but I don't know what the deal is going to be with Life Force. So again, if anybody knows, just send us a message and let us know because we're very desperate to cover Life
We'll
Force.
we'll just steer our space shuttle your way to your
Yeah.
doomed planet.
Yeah,
Clearly, we're into that.
well, the reason we want to do it is Joel's never seen it. And I love Life Force. I think it's like it's just I don't know. There's just something very special about the movie. I don't know how else to put it. It's
I haven't
like,
seen it since the 80s
so
either, so I'm eager to watch it again because
okay.
I have memories of it, but they are very distant memories.
Okay. So yeah, so we'll be back on next week, probably with Event Horizon, I'm guessing. But if we get lucky, we might be here with Life Force. So we'll see. And until then, we will talk to you later.